What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you the full story of Divinity, Dragon Commander. So before we get into this, we actually have to set up a couple of things, because Dragon Commander is such a different game than the entire rest of the Divinity series. First things first, in terms of the timeline, Divinity Dragon Commander is technically the first game chronologically. So Dragon Commander takes place in 8800 AR, which is ancient times, and to put that in perspective, is roughly 10,000 years before the events of Divine Divinity, in which Lucian ascended to become the Divine. As you might imagine, the world was a different place. So more or less what Dragon Commander actually was kind of an experiment, and they framed the game in a way that allowed them to basically throw away all this stuff without ever having to commit to it, which is why the game is set so far back in history compared to all the other games. The next game chronologically after Dragon Commander is also Original Sin, which followed it both in literal development and timeline-wise. Original Sin takes place in 4AR, and the events of which are supposedly what changed the time from AR, Anno Revolutionis, to Anno Diorum, which is the more recent timeline of AD versus AR. Like I said, this game is very far back compared to all the others. And because of that, it is largely irrelevant to the timeline by design, which was really just so they could try out a couple things. The way Dragon Commander actually plays is it's a narrative game followed by RTS battles. Now, the actual gameplay is pretty much all the RTS battles. However, in story mode, there is a bunch of narrative conversations you can have with multiple characters and kind of expanding decisions and how you choose to rule an empire, which I'll get to here in a second. That said, the actual gameplay and the multiplayer that came with it, pretty much all RTS battles, and a bit of a strategy map, which I'll get into later as well, but the strategy map really just boils down to RTS battles. As you can see in the background, it's a very odd game, even by Divinity standards. So, with that out of the way, jumping straight into it, we play as the bastard Dragon Knight son of Sigurd, the Emperor of Rivellon. So, Sigurd, the Emperor, had an affair with a dragon named Aurora, thus making you, who later became a Dragon Knight, under the tutelage of Maxos, which if you've watched my Divinity 2 videos at all, you may remember that name, Maxos. He was one of the leading Dragon Knights pretty much his entire life, and he is usually the one who would give the other Dragon Knights power to transform into a dragon. So he was a very prominent Dragon Knight figure. So naturally, having already risen to the office of Dragon Knight, so to speak, we know Maxos pretty well. And following Sigurd's assassination by all of his children, as you'll see in this short cutscene,
Thousands of years ago, Sigurd I built incredible engines of war, and with them, forged an empire. The emperor married and sired many children. He even had a love child with mysterious Aurora, an ancient dragon in a woman's guise. Once united, peace was declared in Rivellon, and bloodshed soon forgotten. But Sigurd's realm of peace was shattered when his own sons and daughters rose against him. War returned with a vengeance, and annihilation reached new heights. Desperate to safeguard Sigurd's legacy, the wizard Maxos sought the help of the one child that never betrayed his father, Sigurd and Aurora's son, the half-dragon prince. He would be the one to save the empire from ruin, and to aid him in his quest, Maxos delivered unto him the imperial command ship known as the Raven. This is the story of Maxos and the Dragon. This is the story of the Dragon Commander.
Maxos calls upon you, being the bastard son of Sigurd, to reclaim his empire and basically force all of your siblings, your half-siblings, into submission and try to bring peace back to Rivellon. Because what has been happening is people have been making pacts with demons to rapidly expand technology, and it's getting out of control, and everyone's waging war, and basically everything's getting destroyed, and it's a terrible place to live right now. We start out by going through a bunch of tutorials, obviously, on how the game works, and Maxos kind of showing us everything. And the first act of the game is you dedicated to becoming and rising to the stage of Emperor, so to speak, by attacking your brother Carthan. Now, you do this again, through the strategy map and RTS battles. Now, I'm not going to waste your time with those. None of them matter. Basically, all you have to do is take the capital from Carthan, hold it for a turn, and you win. He's defeated. He's not killed, he's defeated.
And so it came to pass that the Dragon Prince was initiated in the ways of war and caught the attention of his siblings. Whereas the prince had been but a flea in his half-brother Carthan Axehand's coat, the dread Decapitator now took full notice of what turned out to be a dragon, and so in turn did the others. Yes, it was in the heartland of Rivellon that the war would be decided between the last of Sigurd's children. Carthan remained a threat, as did his sister Sybil the Silent, who had cut out her own tongue a long time ago to stop the voices in her head from babbling. And then there was Faran the Fleshless, who was convinced he wasn't human at all, but rather an undead, which he would demonstrate by slicing the flesh from his body. Such was the crazed company the Dragon Prince would have to fight. Such were the terrors he would have to overcome. And the way he did so is still studied by all strategists in Rivellon today.
Act 1 is basically you finding this out from Maxos after your late father, was assassinated by your siblings, and then you, being the son of Sigurd, the only one who is not completely insane, make a claim for the throne, which is recognized by pretty much everybody because you're backed by Maxos, except for, of course, Sigurd's other children who challenge that claim, and through war you have to basically prove them wrong. And Maxos, in addition to all this, has made the Raven, which is a Imperial ship, your command center. This is important for reasons we'll get to shortly in Act 2. Now, the Raven is largely just an airship. However, it has a special quality to it that becomes apparent in Act 2, and it is very important. In Act 2, after we've defeated our brother Carthan, we've become familiar with our generals, all of the civilian ambassadors, and then in Chapter 2, we actually get to take a wife as well. We get to choose one of them from 4 possible wives, and each of them have a unique storyline that can usually go one of a couple different ways as well. At this point, you would have met all of the characters. I will get into what the narrative part of this game actually looks like. Basically, every turn, which is you speaking to everybody aboard the ship that has something to say, going to the strategy map, making your moves, passing the turn, letting your opponents take their moves, and then following up on any RTS battles that then come of that, that is considered a full turn in the game. Now, on the start of every turn, new things will be happening aboard the Raven. So from here, you'll be able to talk to those people. In the case of your 4 generals, they usually have their own personal things going on. Once you kind of guide them through those situations, they can gain ranks in certain types of commanding. So if you choose them to auto-resolve an RTS battle for you rather than you having to personally go do it, they will get added percentage chance bonuses based on the type of battle that it is. Then additionally, we have the civilian ambassadors who represent one of the 7 kingdoms each, and basically they will bring things to you, the emperor now, and they'll ask for a decision on them. They'll bring all sorts of just random political problems for you to make a decision on, and if you do nothing, they basically hold a vote, and whoever is more for it takes it. So if 3 of them are for it, 2 of them are against it, the 3 of them will then, of course, enact whatever law it is that was passed by their vote, as opposed to just your decision. And then, of course, we have the wives, which I mentioned. They each have their unique storylines as well, which are fun. But again, all of these decisions, all of these quest lines are meaningless. They contribute nothing to the story. I guess you could say they contribute a little bit to the lore here and there, but honestly, not that much either. Because again, this game was designed to be kind of throwaway. I would say the only thing that this game really establishes well is that A, there was an empire back then, as well as the actual art style followed up in later games. You really kind of start seeing that come together here. And it also does a pretty good job of portraying the 7 races in a more modern sense as opposed to the old games, which didn't really focus on them much. This game is actually kind of really honed in on what the races are all about. You see a lot more lizards, you see the elves more, elvish. However, again, there's not a ton of lore besides those things. That's pretty much it. Like, that brief summary is basically it. So, in Act 2, once we finally get there, which you should have seen the cutscene by now, so I'll skip on. So, in Act 2, it is our goal to kill all 3 of our siblings to, put an end to them, because they're all batshit crazy. Act 2 is exactly that. More strategy, more RTS, until you've conquered all 3 of your siblings' capitals and held them for a turn, and then ta-da, you are crowned Emperor, so you would think. But that is Act 2 of the game. Now, what I haven't mentioned up to this point is that Maxos is powering the Raven by straight up demon power. So, he actually tells you this in Act 2 towards the beginning of it, so it's not like it's a big surprise at the end of the act or anything. But basically, he managed to trap a demon named Corvus there, and he is powering the Raven because he is forced to do so, basically. However, he has been whispering technology to all of the engineers and everything around you. Again, I mentioned that all of this demon-powered technology has been destroying the world, slowly and surely through war. And Corvus is one of the chief demons that has been handing this knowledge down, because he is a dreamwalker demon, which basically means he can invade people's dreams, convince them to do things, all sorts of things that come with dreamwalking into people's dreams. But most importantly, he can plant ideas this way, because they don't necessarily have to know that it's Corvus. He's in a dream for them, so Corvus can appear as anything he wants to appear as in someone's dream. So they don't even necessarily know that they're being manipulated by a demon. Now in this case we do. Upon defeating all of them, all of your siblings that is, Corvus manages to break free of his prison, resurrect all 3 of your siblings, and come at you again for Act 3. So Act 3, we are fighting the demon power hordes of your older siblings again. Well, your other siblings, I guess. Thing is, Act 3 only has the one enemy, which is technically Corvus, so it says he resurrects them, which I guess happens story-wise, but you still only have to capture the one capital, so that's a thing, I guess. So, again, it proceeds. There are more political decisions to make, more quest stuff going on. Once you capture Corvus's capital, you will have successfully vanquished Corvus, thus securing your rightful place as Emperor. Now, where I say this story is mostly meaningless, regardless of how you play, this was set so far back that none of the decisions matter. Now, I did like that at the end of this, they actually put in that you have to help Maxos destroy all of these machines of war, the knowledge of how to build them, the Raven, and everything, which explains why they're not really around anymore. However, that's, as you might imagine, that's a bit of a weak plot point, simply because, people would remember how to build these things. Suffice to say, that is not what happened. They were destroyed, knowledge of how to make them was lost until the events of Divinity 2, where Damien dug them up and used these secrets to build his flying fortresses. We know that because that was specifically stated by Larian during, I believe, the original Sin campaign. They posted a timeline of their own, an updated one, so to speak, which is where a lot of their canon lore comes from. But it specifically mentioned that Damien dug up these and used the knowledge of this ancient civilization stuff to build his flying fortresses in Divinity 2. There you go, guys. That is the full story of Dragon Commander. A very unique game. I can honestly say I've never played anything quite like it. Supposedly, Divinity Fallen Heroes will be taking a similar-ish approach to this if it ever actually releases, so bear that in mind. This is not necessarily a unique idea for Larian Studios because they've kind of done it already. Well, a unique idea for a game, I suppose. I guess I could say it's unique to their studio because, again, I've never really seen a game quite like it. I mean, there are other similar-ish games like RTS strategy stuff, but I don't know, this game it's interesting, I guess is the word for it. So there you go, guys. Probably the quickest wrap-up of the story games that I have, again, just because the story is so irrelevant and so very, very short. In case you're wondering, the first time I played through this game took me about 4 hours. It is a very short game. At least the story part is, because, obviously the big focus was on multiplayer because it's RTS. That said, guys, there you go. That is the full story of Dragon Commander, which brings us up to the more modern games. Our next full story of series for Divinity will actually be for Original Sin, the first one. And just on a personal note, having finally finished Dragon Commander and gotten all the achievements, it marks me completing all of them 100%, so I can officially say I have played every single Divinity game very, very thoroughly, which was exciting for me personally. There you go. So, with that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making it. Hope you like, comment, subscribe, stick around, all that YouTube jazz. But either way, have an amazing day. Thank you for watching.